Hey, and welcome to this episode of Connections, Coffee, and Confidence with me, Janice. Now, this week's episode is an interview with Kerry Hales, Transformational Life Coach. You might remember her from episode 35, and I just had to have her back because, first of all, she made a huge impression with a number of my listeners. I got a lot of feedback, and a lot of people are still listening months and months after it originally played. And Kerry's been doing some really interesting things, and they've led her to some really amazing places this year. This conversation with Kerry was my chance to kind of pry into her accomplishments this year. We talked about everything from her new habit of swimming every day in icy cold water to trademarking and the hassles that can come with that, all the way through to looking at turds and writing a book. I'm telling you, this one really ran the gamut in true Kerry Hales fashion. I hope you enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed talking to Kerry. Hi, I'm Janice Fogarty, and I'm a communications strategist and consultant. The Connections, Coffee, Confidence podcast is for professional women entrepreneurs who have established themselves and their business, and they're ready to get serious about using the power of communication to surpass their business goals. On this podcast, I discuss everything from leadership to establishing a business vision to the intricacies of creating messaging, publicity, and more. I speak to women who excel in communications in their business, whatever they do, and get an inside look at how they created a thriving livelihood. So top up your mug and welcome to this week's episode.
Hello. Look at you in your new room. You're not in a cubby hole anymore.
I can move my arms.
Yeah, look, you and not even touching the walls.
I know, there's actual windows with outside. Yeah, it's very fancy.
Yeah, very fancy. This is a new you. Going up in the world, baby. They've allowed you windows. You better close those up because you'll be looking out the window all the time.
I know. There is a real danger.
It's like you're so used to like there's nothing else to do apart from look at this screen where you're like, look at that.
Oh my God, there's another blue jay.
Yeah, your whole Insta feed will be different.
Yeah, honest to God, eh?
Yeah. Look what's outside my window today, people. I've got a life outside of my cubby hole.
A bird watching life. Could be a whole new direction for me.
Could be. I don't think you need new direction. I don't think so. I think you're doing pretty darn well as you are.
Well, thank you very kindly. This leads us very nicely into just how well you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. Okay, so first thing I actually want to ask you about is your swimming. Tell me about your swimming.
Well, as you know, I live by the beach and I've lived here for nearly 16 years. And I swim a lot in the summer. I'm always in the sea in the summer. And winter and wild swimming has become more popular. And there's a group over here called Blue Tips. I think they might be international, but they're all over the country, and it's sort of basically a Facebook group of women who get together and are sea swimming or river swimming, because there's so many benefits, mindset benefits, immune benefits, different things of jumping in cold water and swimming. And I last year thought, I was going to do it, but it was just too much to add into my life at that time. And I just couldn't. I think I realized of how much I like routine, especially now being a single parent. I'm even more reliant on how to get things done when you've got to do it yourself, like everything to do yourself. So, but over the year, I've got different. I've been on my SUP board, and I joined a group who, so over the summer we've been doing that. And then they were going to do winter swimming. And so it was kind of like, I can do this. And I'd already bought a dry robe for my sons and Sea Scout. So I already had that, which is like a big fleecy thing inside. So you can get changed in it, but it's warm. So you can, so they needed that for Sea Scouts. So I bought those. I bought extra big sizes because they're going to be huge anyway. So I thought, well, I may as well buy it, and then I can use it. So I had all the kit. So all I needed to buy really was some boots and gloves. And it's been like, I'm amazed how just by keeping those two parts of, and sometimes I wear a hat, of you warm, how you can just get in. And the rule is that for every degree of the weather that it is, that's how long you should stay in, until you are like, the super people that do it. I can't think of his name, the guy. So so you go in and you move around. You don't just go in and sort of tiptoe in, you just go in and get in. And the best way to do it also is to have cold showers. So I was doing a challenge in November anyway of doing a 30-second cold shower. So I have a normal shower, and I just turn it on cold and just do 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. And isn't it funny how we use the word Mississippi, and we've always, as a child, even that was like Mississippi. It's like, how did that happen at that timing, become like a universal timing of Mississippi? Anyway, I digress. So that really helps. So you're kind of, and I love, like, I've always loved, even when I did burpee challenges or things like that, I love the whole thing of challenging my own mind. So as much as we stand there, like yesterday, the waves were like at least 10 foot, and that's really unusual for Whitstable. And we stood there. I mean, it was blowing my bag up to shoulder height of how much the wind was going. It was crazy wind. And I stood there with a guy who'd never, his first year as well. And he looked at me, he said, "Is this a bit mad?" I said, "This is a bit mad." There were about 6 of us. And I went, "Yeah, it is a bit mad." I said, "But let's just go in for a minute. Like, what's the worst going to happen if we go in and get out in a minute, And it was just like, I don't know if you remember sort of wave machines as a kid, that you go into the actual machines in swimming pools. It was like that, because you were just like jumping over the waves. And he was like a little boy. I mean, it was just, he came out, he goes, "That's the most fun I've ever had in the sea, like ever."
Yeah.
And it was just wild. You just, and then it takes you quite a few hours to warm back up. You do have to have some hot drinks and things like that. But in that, you overcome stuff. It's just like, there's so many lessons in it that you can do difficult things. Like, you can. It's not going to kill you. Might hurt a bit. Might think, why am I doing this? I should stay warm and safe and on the side and drink coffee. But life's much more fun when you're in it rather than watching.
I love it, and I laugh at the same time. I think
last year I thought, whoa. But now I'm doing it. I'm like, yeah. So
you're doing it with this almost like an abandonment of the expectation that you stay warm and dry in life. You just seem to be like literally jumping in and, oh my gosh, I'm freezing cold, but boy, do I feel good.
Boy, do I feel alive.
Yeah.
Just to feel alive. And I think that same with everything that we do. I'm just like, well, what's the point of life? I'm just like, stay comfortable, stay normal. I'm not signed up to that.
Not what you're here
nope.
for.
Huh?
It's not what you're here for.
Clearly not. I mean, I've never been like that way, and I'm just like, well, this is clearly it for you, so just carry on.
Yeah. And do you think that the practice of putting yourself into that cold water every day against what must be an often voice saying, maybe we'll just skip today, do you think that has bolstered you or pushed you further in any other of your aspects of your life?
Yeah, I think any challenge that does that. Like when I did a burpee challenge, you just you, you kind of, you're just reminded that you can do hard things. You know, like I don't know if you've read Untamed, but I mean that book is amazing to me, and just of the things that you can, we can do hard things, and or I say to my clients, you can do difficult things. Have a look at the things that you've done before in your life, and you've overcome them. Why do you think you can't overcome this one? So when you're doing the, you know, the swim, like even just driving down to the sea, I mean, you're in for, like, I left home at 7:30, no, 2:30, and I was back by 3:30. It wasn't a big chunk of life, you know, a small moment of your life. Go down there, get in, get out, get warm, get dressed, go home, and go, wow, I could have just sat here and watched 2 episodes of something, or I could go and just feel like I've just braced myself against life a bit. And it does have a huge impact. It does, because you're just reminded that, especially when you get in the city, and especially yesterday when you're like being pummeled, it was very much a reminder of how small and insignificant your woes and, whether I've put that in the right font, or my branding isn't right, or blah, 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 or I didn't post on the right day at the right time. And then you're just like, I need to stay alive. Right?
Different level.
Yeah. And it just puts things back into perspective. Like, and I like that. I think we don't challenge ourselves enough. And I don't know, that's a speaker statement, but it's just, those kinds of things just make you so much more resilient to the smaller things in life, and whether you're worried about what people think, and then you just think, go and jump in the sea, you'll soon get out of your head. And I think that, to me, that the more time you spend out of your head into being who you are supposed to be, you're going to have a better journey in life.
Those are sound words.
Just spouting them all today.
I bet you saved them up for me.
I did. What knowledge have I got that I can give to Janice and her community?
So, am I right in thinking that you have done some really big things this year? Like, I feel you've really made some big jumps and some big leaps. And it, like, do you feel like that's accurate? Do you feel like this year in business?
Yes, I think that's true. I think that this year has been an accumulation of lots of things that have been wavering around for a very long time. In terms of my business, of what I'm running, I'm still doing a mastermind. I've done a mastermind for the last 3 or 4 years. That's the same. The mastermind's now got a trademark on it. But I've been using that name for the last 3 or 4 years. So that's no different. Decluttered has got a trademark on it. That was a journey and a half to get that, to go, because the first name that I put in was opposed by another coach. And that was uncomfortable, and that knocked me off my rails for quite a bit. But actually, Decluttered is the signature system that I've been running for, that's now Decluttered, that was called Shift the Ship, that was called Finding You, that was called the Reboot Academy, right? So it's not like that's any different, like in terms of my journey as a coach. So those things, they didn't all happen this year. The exposure and who I've become this year have happened this year. And I think that's a lot to do with, the book mm-hmm. I wrote, the experience happened to me 6 years ago, but it's very much of the analogy of how I work with people. So that has been brewing and actually of me doing talks and presentations and different things on decluttering your Knicker Drawer for 6 years. And so this year, when the opportunity came up to go into a mastermind that had a book deal with it, I knew that had to happen. And also this year, sort of when I split up with my son's dad, last January. So that's also been a huge shift for me, of actually sort of stepping more into my power. Because when you're in a relationship that isn't working, you compromise. And so when you decide to cut out compromise, you can then really step in. So loads of those things sort of all happened in succession. Do you mean? So, but from the outside, if you only knew, if you'd only just met me, you think, oh my God, you know, the woman's on fire. She's doing this. I'm like, yeah, well, that little fire has been, I went around, picked up twigs. I made that fire. I blew that fire, and it went out quite a number of times. You know, my overnight success this year has been 20 years in the brewing. You know, so it's one of those things of like of resilience, of working at things and watching your mindset and playing small. You know, I played small for a long time because I didn't want to outshine my ex-partner, and I had to own that, and that kept me safe. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, I can't do that because of that. And actually, not that he ever said that. That was my narrative around him, and I kept thinking he'll do this, and then I'll feel like we're growing together, and that didn't happen. And that's not against him at all. That was how I kept myself in a smaller place. And also I had children, and my mum died, and loads of different things happened. But so this year has been very much of, you know, you're in a mastermind, and that's very uncomfortable. The growth that you're up against, and the comparisonitis that you deal with, you know, that somebody else is launching and they've had this launch and then that launch, and you're just like, launch and fail, launch and fail, launch and fail, you know. So in terms of that, it's only at the latter end of this year when things have really started to work for me, to like financial success. So yeah, things have changed a lot now, which has been very welcomed.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're very open about this has been 20 years in the making. Like this, the overnight success, is actually a 20-year overnight.
Yeah, it's like there is no such thing as an overnight success, but people want, you know what I mean? They just think, oh, I need to get, once I've got this and this and this and this and this, and then I'll have a 100K business. So it's like, you won't. You know, unless you're fantastic at marketing before and you've got, loads of business skills to run a business, to run it by yourself. I mean, it's just a whole, there's so much that goes into running your own business successfully. But also, my goal wasn't to have a six-figure business, and I don't have a six-figure business currently, possibly next year, but it's more about that it's aligned with my family, with how I wanted to live. Like I live by, like I can jump in the sea. I have 2 dogs, 2 cats. I get up in the morning, I do all of those things, and they took a long time to get, because I didn't live by the sea. I lived in the town. I didn't find a man that I wanted to have children with. It took all of those things take a long time to create. Now I do have lots of ticks and lots of boxes, but they didn't happen by me just writing a list and going, I'll do that today. I'll do that today. It's like, no, they take a long time. And that's why it's really important to do every day, to do the things that make you happy, because those journeys, like this pinnacle part of trademark, to all those kind of outside kind of, oh, look at that, she's got a best-selling book, are valuable in themselves. But actually, whether I have a best-selling book or I don't, it's amazing to be recognised finally for your authority in the business. But every day I get to do what I love. I live where I love. I hang out in a beautiful house. I have all of those things. And those things took time. They're more important to me. Do I get to get up? Like this morning, I got up at 6:30 and I was in the woods with my dogs, and it's a beautiful autumn day. And me and my friend are putting the world to rights, going up and down hills with our Nordic poles. And the dogs are exhausted and everyone's happy. and then I can come to the office and come and do some work, and like interviews and different things today. And that's my day, so whether I do that is more important than whether I have a best-selling book.
Mm-hmm.
Did that make sense?
It did. Yeah. It's more about living with your values. And you value your time and your family and your space.
Yeah, hugely. You just, they probably have a different conversation. Like my son says, but you're always busy. I'm like, yeah, but you have to, it's good to teach them that, to me, I'm teaching them to run a business. It's like, this is what happens. These are the things you have to do. I don't just sit there watching Netflix.
Yeah, and it isn't an overnight success where I just posted 5 videos and all of a sudden I'm a best-selling author. You work at this.
You work at it, and a best-selling author means you grow an audience that know, like, and trust you, and you can't just do that in 6 months.
Yeah.
You've got to rock up, and are your values aligned? Do you say what you say? Do you do it? Are you that person?
Yeah.
Like, am I a person that I'm going to ask you an uncomfortable question because I'm prepared to get uncomfortable myself? Like, I'm not going to hide behind something. Ask me anything. I'm completely transparent about who I am and what I do, and I feel that that's really important as a life coach to be that person. That's not the same for everybody, but it is for me.
So what do you think the catalyst was for you to do those external things of the trademarks and the book?
There were 2 things. For internally, for me, they were they gave me the authority that I was fed up of saying, I've been doing this 20 years, and that's not enough anymore. There are thousands of coaches, and what differentiates you from anybody else in the business who will say, I can give you and I can do this and do that, and 6-figure business, whatever, lifestyle, whatever you want is there. You can find a coach to do that. And how do you stand out from that? Because when I first started, I had to explain what a life coach was, and now it's a very different life, different field. And also because I'm in it, I think that everyone's a coach. I know that's not the truth, but it feels like that when you're in it. So when I was so that for me gave me now, when I'm talking, oh, I'm a transformational life coach, you can see that people are like, oh, another one. And I'm like, yes, I'm a best-selling book. And then they go, oh, she must know something, even though some people have written books and really don't know their stuff anyway. So it really doesn't make any difference. But what it does, it just makes people kind of, they're people who are this, and then they've done this, and then they've done this, and they've done this. So that's what the book gave me. It's given you an authority. It's people have always said that to me. It's the best business card in the world. Here's my book. It's like, oh. And what I love about my book is that it's funny, but it's also transformational, which is what I do. So it's very reflective of who I am, which I love. And it's also short, sharp, a bit pokey, which is me. So that's fun too. So that gave me the authority that I was seeking, in terms of like people taking my experience, my wisdom as a coach with a little bit more authority. The trademarks, interestingly enough, so obviously, so it's only been this week that they've both come through that I actually have all the paperwork and everything. So that's been quite a big week in terms of KHHQ. Interestingly, my coach said, oh, you've done well to get this one, the business of you. She said, because there was another coach who she knows, who she's worked with. So she's sort of, in terms of financial investment, the coach that she worked with is, quite a big investment to invest in. And she said, oh, that's his program is called that, and there's something else. And she said, well, she who trademarks wins. And I said, well, to be honest, I wouldn't be looking for it. You know what I mean? And it's an interesting kind of dilemma now. I was talking to my friend this morning on the walk of, I didn't trademark to go into conflict with people about whether they use business of you in their terminology or their group program or anything like that. That's not why I did it. I did it because I wanted people to know that I take my work seriously. And if I've trademarked my business, then that makes it looks, it's not just like any floaty thing. And it also stops me from recreating another, like you're saying, it's like, finding new, it's like, no, this is what you're doing, this is how you're going to do it, and stop fucking around.
Yeah.
You are now decluttered and business of you. And my membership is called the Courageous Collective, and that's going through trademarking. And so they're all done. It's like, you're done now. Stop messing around. And they are both signature systems, signature ways that I work. I've been doing it for years. It works. People transform. So it's a very personal thing. It is a statement to the outside, but for me, it's like, you've come to me and I take my work exceptionally seriously. How I do it is with a lot of fun, but don't mistake the two. Like, if you come into my world and you ask me to work with you, there will be a result. Otherwise, I won't work with you. And I wanted that to be impactful in what can I do to make sure the outside world knows how seriously I take it. And it also makes me step up and say, right, okay, you have a trademark. You're doing it properly now. You're all grown up. That's what I said to Lisa. I said, I'm all grown up, which she thought was hilarious. I'm all grown up now. I'm 52.
It's as good as time as any. I'm curious now about something that you just said, that you didn't trademark to tell people, like to get into conflict and tell people that they can't use that phrase or whatever. But do you feel that there's going to come a time, if you're not there yet, that there will come a time where you need to become that way, where you need to protect your brand?
Yeah, but it won't be me doing it. It won't. I'm not spending my time in conflict with anybody. I've done enough of that in my life.
Yeah.
I have no interest. If you want to take me to court to do something, go ahead, but I won't be there. Because it's one of those, you know what I mean? It's like, if someone wants to use it and they want to do this, it depends what it is and how it is. But I know a really great lawyer, and it's sort of, and I don't want to play that game. Like, I'm not Tony Robbins. And if I ever become like that big, then there'll be other people that don't do that. But really, like, there's so many different words and different phrases, and everyone goes through different phases of, and I've watched how Lisa had to take a certain coach to court because of how, and people are malicious, and that's really uncomfortable. I'm not interested in that. Not interested in poking a fire or a storm. I didn't do it for that. I didn't do it to, like, it's mine. You can't have it. It's mine. Like, really? I did it for me. I did it because I wanted it in my business. If you come to work with me, then this is what you'll get. I take it very seriously, and this is the outcome. And I have no interest in spending my life in court. I'd rather be in the sea.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Have we got to do that? Like, you're doing wrong. Like, and I think I'm a good enough communicator to be able to talk to people, but also I can be really naive, Janice. People are mean. Like, the same like of the time, like this year, and I've had to learn that, and it's really uncomfortable because I love everyone until you prove otherwise. Like, and then I'm always hurt and a bit like, Oh, really? You're not? Like, if I say I like you, I like you. I don't just like you and then leave you. Like, you're in. If you're in, you're in. If you're not, you're not. But,
Yeah.
that's so, like, this year with the trademark and the coach. I mean, she was nasty and mean. Like, you've done this, you've done that. It's just like, I've not done none of that. I just told you, you have no idea who I am, my philosophies or my values or anything. I've no interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
You just sort of, no. And so it was a new name for me. Like, I have the trademark. It's called the shift method. She used the shift other things. I won't go into that because that's not interested to me. And she said that, this was hers and she'd use it and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, had it been my baby, do you know what I mean? Like, then I probably could have gone into battle. But again, I've no interest. It's just like, really? You want that much? Have it. Like, why do I want to spend a lot of time doing that? I mean, if it had been, like, if someone had tried, put it this way, if someone had tried to steal life lessons from your Knicker Drawer, I'd have been in.
Yeah.
It's a very different feeling because that's my life, my philosophy, my analogy, my thing. It's not anybody else's discussion about it. Everyone knows that's what you do. Someone else decides to bring out a book called Declutter Your Knicker Drawer or something, then I'd have been like, yeah, that's not quite right though, is it? So that would be a very different thing because it's mine. It's my journey. It's my thing. Whereas this method, that method, really, I don't think so. So it wasn't me. So I was just like, you know what, fine. So I said to her, okay, it'll go through. And she didn't pay me. She didn't do any of the things that she said she was going to do or anything else. And you kind of look and you think, karma.
That's what's in my head. Yeah.
I don't wish anybody else things because I just think there must be something going on with you for you not to follow through on what you said. Because if you purport to be a person with integrity and you say things and you're not doing that for whatever reason, there's got to be something going on with you. And I'm not interested. I have to. Don't get me wrong. I have to work at it because there are times when I just say, she.
Yeah.
That cost me money. That cost me my lunch. And I think, okay,
you're still human.
Yeah, exactly. Who's losing out here, Kerry? Go jump in the fucking sea. Go do something else. Get your shit off of your story of woe and get back on the horse as quickly as you can, in whatever way that you can. So, if you're getting stuck on something, it's like, who's losing here? What's the cost? It's not a cost to her. Mm-hmm. She's doing her stuff. The cost would be to me to still holding on to, licking my wounds. Don't worry, I did have a pity party for a while. And then you just go, right, okay, how long do I want to do this for? And I think that's been the difference this year. So that was February, March. And then, then I did a terrible launch because I thought I have to reinvent the wheel. I was against all these other coaches and different people, not against them, but, comparing myself to them and everything else. I think, I'm going to do a launch. It's going to be this. I'm going to do something else. I'm not going to do a decluttered launch. No, why do I want to do that? I am going to do a launch on fear. And man alive, it was just, you kind of go, what am I doing here? And you have to just look at it and suck it up and go, didn't work, did it, Kerry? And cry a bit and go, right, okay, pull yourself together and get back on the horse.
I pull so many interesting bits out of what you've just been saying. To me, 2 or 3 things really stand out as themes in that you really are committed to following through with living according to your values, in that you value your mental health, your sanity, your own well-being over fighting somebody on something that in the grand scheme of things doesn't necessarily make a whole wide world of difference to you.
No. Yeah, absolutely. And it happens all the time, Janice.
Yeah.
All the time in life. There'll be an injustice that will happen, and I think, oh, that's not right. And I'm like, okay, how long do I want to hold himself for? Because it allows you, and it will be the same with everybody gets caught up somewhere. Mine's generally about injustice. And if something around that happens, it allows you to be sniffy. Do you know what I mean? It allows you to be pissy. It allows you to be angry or sad or a grievance or eat shit or drink too much or do things that you just like, your chimp just wants to just beat her chest and just go, this is not fair. And that's okay for a bit, but it's like, by all means, get it up and out. And I think the wisdom being of a certain age is I don't have time to hang around anymore. I've learned so much about my life and the lessons that I now know that if I want to hang out there, I can waste years. We can all waste so much of our time bemoaning what our life isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than going, well, it isn't that, but I can do this, or I can do that, or I can, have this kind of conversation or conversation I had earlier. And you think, well, isn't that more interesting than, dealing with the stuff that keeps you living the small life? Keep curious about what, and also be responsible. I think that's the difference. That I'm responsible for that. It's so easy for me to blame that coach. She's the one. She did this. She didn't do rich things, or whomever, be it my coach, be it anybody, or anybody who's done you wrong, in inverted commas. And then it's just like, well, that gives me license to not live my life because that I was, insert the excuse of your life. And therefore, I can't have that because this happened to me and it didn't happen to anybody else. And therefore, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, you can dine out on that. And and it may well be legitimate. Absolutely. And because horrible things have happened to many of us, not through our choosing or anything else, but it's about your path, isn't it? I just think, well, life is shitty at times. It isn't all, I'm not saying that my life's a bunch of roses because it's not a lot of the time. But do I want that to be how I live? Or say, well, this is pretty shitty and I'm not really enjoying this. And if I shared all the shitty things that happened to me, people would then go, oh, that's terrible. It's like shitty things happen to people. I just choose to be here.
Choose not to sit in it.
Yeah. Or if you're going to sit in it, enjoy sitting in it. Like what I say to clients is just like, really enjoy it. Like it's like if you're going to eat shit, eat it and enjoy it. Whatever it is, whatever you're doing, be in it, like enjoy it. If you're going to eat a load of pile of food and think that that's okay, then eat it. Don't kind of like begrudgingly do it. Really enjoy it. And then you can leave it. Whereas if you kind of half do something, you're still half thinking that you could have done a bit better back then. It's like, no, really go for it. And then you can let it go.
I'm also really impressed with the detachment that's required to be able to be that free about things. You were saying if it was about life lessons from your Knicker Drawer, you obviously are more attached to that because that would have gotten your goat. And I think that is something that a lot of us, myself included, find really difficult, is to detach yourself from what it is you do or sell or make or create. That's hard.
It's practice. The big lesson that I learned when I was from my mentor was life's not a personal event. Every time you take something personally, you lose. They don't lose, you lose. And you lose time, feelings, you're just time taken to get over it. anything else. So for me, that was always a task. Like when that was said to me, 20 years ago, I was like, what does that even mean? They pissed me off. He did this. She said that. All of these things were making me like allowing me to be angry about stuff. And then when you practice that, of like, life's not personal. Like, if I got dumped by the sea yesterday, I was going to blame the sea. Like, and I did. I mean, like, the one guy said, have you not got straps on your glasses? I went, I didn't really think that I would need to take my glasses off, but maybe I might have to invest in some of those. You're like for example, let's just go back to the example that we were talking about earlier. That was, like the trademark. I could really have taken that personally, and she wasn't nice, and I shared it with the mastermind, and they were like on my defense. Yeah. That's not one. Blah, 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 blah. And then I was really conscious of actually that I was, okay, what am I doing? What am I actually looking for in there to make me feel better that somebody else has wronged me? And therefore, like, okay, what do you want from this? Like, what do I want to get out of that situation? Actually, the truth is, I just want to do what I do and get on and share that with more people. The more people that I can touch, the better, right? That really, when it boils down to it, I want to be able to jump in the sea, have fun with my kids, have fun with my animals, live a kind life. Generally, that's what I want to do. Like, really, that's it. If I can get money coming in, brilliant, that pays me to be able to do those things and make more choices with my life. That's the main goal, right? So when it comes down to it, it's really simple. But then when you start to add things to it, but she said this and this and that and this and this, and then you've got this person's consideration, and they think this and they think that, and somebody else replies to them and they think this, and well, that's not wrong, and you should do this, and but you should out her on social media, blah, blah. You're just like, okay, so now I'm really holding a big hot topic of like, if I don't do something, I'm responsible for not only my considerations, for everybody else's considerations. And the truth is, I just want to work. I just want to be able to go on to have conversations with people, get them to lead their lives, get them to understand that they're here for a journey and to get on and do it. That's the truth. Anything other than that, it's like, oh, it's just pulling me away from it. And so when you start to kind of keeping that in mind, am I taking this personally? I've taken it personally. Yeah, that hit a nerve. And okay, what do you, instead of blaming somebody else, and you blame someone, you disempower yourself. I don't have any power of like whether she does or she doesn't. I can send her as many emails as I like, saying, I think it's disgusting. You should have naughty. And it doesn't happen, right? I'm not, you see what I mean? Like, well, you slap her around the face via email. Wrong. And so you just go, well, what do I want to do? What do you really want to be doing in life? Like, oh, and when you really pare it back, and I work with people, say, what's your gift? What do you want to be doing? Well, I just want to do this. I just want to go and teach people that they can be great parents. I just want to go and teach people to do this. Okay, so how can we do that more? And drop this whole hot potato that you carry around with you, all the woes and the shoulds and the horror that we carry, that you get to do that more. And it does take practice, but it's the same with anything. Same with anything, like on a daily thing. It's like, how am I taking that personally? And there's always something that's going to kind of go, well, what about this then? Yeah, what about this one? Have you? And that's your mind. Your mind's insidious. It wants to and it wants to keep you safe. It's going to do that. And that's the whole thing, is doing things that challenge you. So that when that thing comes in, there's going to be a life shock. Someone's going to say something's going to happen, and then you can deal with it because you've got that resilience to be able to say, okay, what do I need to do here? Okay, I need to go and get the bath, because when all this fails, that's where I need to go.
That's fair. I go to my oven and bake. Like,
yeah,
you got to save space.
And like my mentor, honestly, I look back at the things that he taught me, and him and his wife would be shouting at him, and they go, you should be doing whatever. So, and it go, I'm going skiing. And it just goes skiing. And she would rant and rave, and then she would calm down, and once you let your mind settle, then you go, oh God, what was that all about? And we all know that feeling, right? You do. You know that, like, you need to have your tantrum and you throw your things out. But what I'm saying is, like, have your fucking tantrum, get over it. Like, how do you get over it and get on with it as quickly as you can? By knowing yourself. Like, I know I might need to go, and I might need to write that bloody email,
Yeah.
And then just sit there and then go for a walk or whatever it is. Cup of tea. That's always a solitary thing, a sort of, not a solitary thing, a thing that you do, and it's like, let's have a cup of tea. It's like, you need to just let it settle. Go away, have a cup of tea, calm your mind down, let it just think, and then go, okay, what are you doing? Well, I wanted to do this, and I might need to speak to a friend and go, I need to just rant, and they'll go, okay. And they go, and this happened, and this happened, and this, and they'll go, right, okay. Like, right, yeah. So what are you going to do? Nothing. Okay, good.
Yeah. You might need to write the email, but you don't need to send it.
No. You might need to vent.
Yeah.
I might even get into the shower and go, and even chat away to myself.
Yeah.
And then it goes. You're like, okay.
Oh, I feel you. I think it's difficult, but I admire the fact that you stick with that principle.
Yeah.
Of reminding yourself and bringing yourself back to what you actually value versus the potentials.
Yeah, the arguments, the conflicts. Anytime it's like it's the conflict, you just think, okay, is this my conflict? Is it mine? That's huge. If, like, especially on social media. Oh, look what's happened to me today. And everyone, all the sycophants come up, oh, but we love you. Oh, but you're okay. Oh, this is, it's like, oh man, okay, whatever. Next.
Yeah, it's not really meaningful.
It's not. It's like, it's stirring the pot.
Yeah.
And I'd say, I don't want to stir a pot. I'm just going to cut straight through it, pick out the turd and go, look, this is what we're talking about. This turd. Everyone see it? It's a turd. Okay, goodbye. Moving on.
Yeah. Such a good analogy. Yeah, that was good. So your book, that has been a long time in the making, though. Like, the same with the rest of your overnight success. It was a long time in the making.
Yes, definitely. Well, it happened. My mum died in 2015 in March, and I'd joined up with a coach before my mum died and joined a mastermind. And I was, sort of 5 years in after having babies, and my body wasn't how I still wanted it to be. And I was, and she said, well, how do you want to be? And I was like, oh, I want to be sexy, lean and strong. And so I thought, right, the best way to do that was going to look at myself in the mirror. So I went upstairs, looked in the mirror, and I was standing there in my bra and knickers. I took a picture and I thought, like what I wanted to be versus what was looking back in the mirror were, worlds apart at the time. But also they weren't just, when I look at my 5 years on, I'm like, look at myself thinking, actually, I didn't look too bad even the before and after picture, but that's all perspective. It was also a time of a huge time for me of finding, like, when you lose your mum, depending on what relationship you have with your mum, like for me, my mum knew what we had for dinner, so we were close. And so there was a huge hole, and that hole was where I didn't need to find self-love because I had the love of my mum. So she was always the person that I would go to if, you just pick up the phone and I'd sign, she'd be like, you're right, babe. And we'd have a conversation. And she was always the kindness. She was always the kindness to myself, to my, of me beating myself up about whatever it may be. So the book is a mixture of those two things happening. And the analogy of the knicker drawer was when I went to my knicker drawer and saw all of the things that have put it in front of you, and seeing sort of how much of me do I love in this moment, and how is that reflected in my knicker drawer. And it was a very small percentage. There was a huge amount of all the old knickers, old memories, old stories of, and then there's all the projected ones of in the future when you're beautiful and sexy and lean, you can wear these pairs of knickers again, and you can wear these again, and you could dress up in this, and but also in the meantime you've got to suck you in and push you up and do all the things to make your body look on the outside like how everybody else wants, or you think everybody else wants you to look. So it's such a smorgasbord of images of different things of how you could be rather than who I was. Mm-hmm. So I just got a bag and just threw out everything that didn't make me feel good, and there was not much left.
Yeah.
And that was the start of me learning to love me, clearing out more, because that was really where the compromise part started, of where you're accepting things that you don't love. And so that point was really the change. So, and I came downstairs and I said to Frank, the boy's dad, I've just done this. And he was like, he looked at me, he said, well, I think you've really got something there. He said, I can see you sitting on, Good Morning Britain talking about that with a book. I looked at him as if he was mad. I said, what do you mean, a book? What? But part of me kind of thought, ooh. Yeah, you've got, even now, I've even got goosebumps talking about it, because it was as absurd as that was to me, like that I would write a book. I mean, just off your rocker mad. It landed somewhere, and I was like, oh. And so from that moment, I talked about it, and I kind of thought, oh, maybe I should explore this more, and I should write it. And I just thought, yeah, but it's not a big book. I'm not going to be able to talk to this for hundreds of pages. Like, really, same as when I work. Do this, do this, do this. Let's work on this. Get uncomfortable. Let's have that conversation, and let's get on with it. And I've always liked the books like Eat the Frog, Who Moved Your Cheese, small books that are conceptual books that, once you get it, you get it. Because the same with any book. Like, once I've got it, the main principle of the book, and then there's a book that's written around it, isn't it? It really is a paragraph, isn't it? Like, this book means you do this, you do this, you do this. And I'm like, okay. Like, I can generally read an exec summary and not need to read the rest of the book, because I just like, well, do I need to do all that? And when I was with the boy's dad, he would read the books, and then he would tell me about them, and they're like, well, I don't need to read it now, because he's going, no, you need to read the book. And I'm like, yeah, but you've told me what it is, and I get that, and so I can now work with that in my head. I'm smart like that, or maybe stupid, I don't know, but it works for me. So that's how. And then I test it, and I had to go through a whole imposter kind of thing about that, because just that it's not a book, it can't be a book, and every time I'd and the title changed, it was called Declutter Your Knicker Drawer, knickers to it, there were all different things and stuff. And then about 3 years, it must be 3 years ago, I remember having a conversation with one of my friend's husbands, and he said, what's the title of the book? And I said, well, and I said, and then Life Lessons from a Knicker Drawer came, and I was like, ooh, I think that's the title. So that happened a while ago, and then obviously lockdown and everything else. So yeah, and then the opportunity for the working with Authors and Co came up, who are absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm. I just referred somebody to them, actually.
Abby, I say to people, I would lick her feet, and I have no interest in doing that to anybody, because she's that an amazing human. The things that she did, I think we are very aligned. She's got a heart of gold, an absolute heart, and what she will do whatever she can to make your book, because generally like my book, more some people's books are just business books and they are a replica of their signature system. Mine is, but in a different way. But because we talked about it, she said, "Okay, so tell me about your book. Tell me about what you do. Tell me." And I said, "Oh, do you want me to tell you about a book?" And I said, "Oh, this is my book." She went, "Oh, whoa!" So, which I was like,
"Yeah,
I like it. I like that. That's how her response was." And she's just been amazing. So yeah.
How long did it take you to actually write it?
Well, I had over the years, obviously, I had quite a lot of it, and I'd changed the format of it quite a few times, because at one point I thought I was going to write it in the chapter titles of knickers. So that, and I thought, no, that can't be right, because I thought that okay, sort of, because they lend themselves easily to sort of thinking in the forward or past or different things, that conversations that you can have. And I thought, no, they all need to be in a chapter. So that was more difficult. I think once I got the chapter titles, and then I went to the retreat house and sat and wrote it. And I'd already written out that the introduction is quite a long paragraph, a long chapter. So then it was just a matter of just sitting and writing it. So it probably, to actually write it, because also that's another point of when you're writing a book, it's not the writing part. Well, before you go into actually sort of saying that it's going to be a book, you think that actually writing the book is the hardest part. And in all truth, that's not the case. It's the writing part is the easiest part, because you're just basically like brain dumping. So once you've got that you don't edit as you write, then you write it all out, and then you edit, and that's just like excruciating, because it's like birthing a baby, and then every time you cut a cord from it, every time you give it to somebody else, and like the first time you give it to somebody else to read through, it's just like, oh my gosh. And I remember sending the introduction off to the publishing company, and then it took just like, I thought they were going to send it back sort of like with big red lines through it, just like see me, this is not a book, what are you thinking? Every time
see me.
God. Yeah, it was like
flashback to school.
Totally. And at university I had the same thing, because I went back to university as a mature student. I studied psychology and communications, and I remember getting back my first essay, and just like, just thinking, I had this vision of this guy walking behind me and him tapping on my shoulder and just whispering in my ear going, "You shouldn't be here, should you?"
Oh.
Yeah, huge imposter syndrome around that. And the same with the book. You just kept thinking that she's at some point going to say, "Kerry, this is not a book. It's a pamphlet." And it's a small book, it's not, but it does qualify. I would say it does qualify for a book, just.
Yeah, but like, Who Moved the Cheese, or Who Moved My Cheese is not that's not an epic,
No,
tome.
No, yeah.
So you actually took yourself off to a separate location.
Yes.
And knocked it out.
Yeah, I think that's really important to do that, because unlike anything else that you're writing, like a blog post or just any post, or sort of, something that's small, like 250 words, something like that, and anything, you haven't got to have a huge amount of capacity in your mind available. But when you're writing a book, you've got to get back in the zone of where you're writing, where you left off. You've got to get back into the cadence of that you're talking in a very different way to any other way that you've written. Because when you write a social media post, you're writing to your audience. Whereas when you're writing your book, you're writing to a new audience that doesn't know you, that doesn't know that that's the way that you are, or that you find funny, or your humor. So you've got to be more, you've got to explain more to them. And that was hard. That was difficult to do. But once you got that, and so once that was the gift of going away and doing it, because then you stay in that zone. Because you can't dip in and dip out. You can't, I'm just going to write my book for half an hour. You can't, because you've got to get into that. You've got to read, get back into what you were saying. Okay, I was saying this, I was on a train of thought. Okay, that's what I meant by that. Okay, but I need to write that. And sometimes if you need to stop, you almost need to just write a couple of bullet points to yourself to sort of to help you get back into the groove. So when you go away and just spend, I had 3 days, and I was like, no, that's what I need to be doing. And I was really grateful because I did finish it. I finished the most of it to sort of, and then I could come back and edit it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But at least I had it down. I had it down, So, and that was in March. Yeah. So then you have to go through the editing process. You have to go through writing the blurb. So all of these things. So I was lucky. I had the title. Then I had the front cover, which I'm very lucky that my oldest friend also has a publishing company, and she had some really clear ideas of what she wanted. She thought that the book cover should be, and text, because she does that for a living. So I was definitely going to bring her on board to say. So there were 3 of us, of how my idea was, and obviously that, and I'm lucky that I've done all my branding and everything else. All the colours are there, so all the website was there and up to date. But there was lots of tinkering. Even every pair of knickers on that front cover is not just been put there. They've been moved around, and that's like work over there, and there's a work over there, and this colour and that colour, and we want a green line here, and I want a bolder green line here, and I want that bold, and I want that bigger, and I want that small. Frank, the boy's dad, he's a writer, so he helped me write the blurb, because he knows me, and he knew the book as well as I did.
Mm-hmm.
So he wrote that out, and then I tinkered with that. And so, just loads of different parts to one thing. And then, you send it off, and even when you first get it through the door, your first copy, and and you look at it, and it's like, that's got my name on it. That's my book. I've got a book. And then you start calling yourself an author, and you're like, right, because it just seems so surreal to me. I remember I was away with some friends, who I'm going away with again this weekend, and it was the end of July, beginning of August, and so it came out on the 5th of August, which was International Underwear Day. So I found out that was the date, because it was going to come out in July, and I was like, oh no, let's do it on there, because that made sense, right?
It's a good PR move.
Exactly. So, but obviously I didn't know. So even though you're launching on a certain day, everything has to be tested and everything else. So it's up and available before, but you don't tell anybody it is. So I was away with friends, and I said, I could show them some bits of it and stuff. And they, these are my school friends. Of course, so we're on Amazon, and there's my book that comes up, and they were like, "Is that your book?" And I went, yeah, I guess it is. So then they could actually flick across, because the Kindle was on, and you know what I mean, like their pride in at that moment for me was amazing, because my mum's not here. Do you know what I mean? There's certain people that how they feel about it has just been magical, and that was a huge turning point really for me. But even then, that's your book, and then sort of well, next time we'll be going out with a famous author. And I went, well, don't push it. Do you know what I mean? There's famous and there's famous, But, since then, sort of, it opens up lots of things, and people know people. I mean, you've got to ask. I was a school mum on the train who was very proud. She said, oh, we're so proud of you, so proud of you. And I thought, oh, so lovely, thank you so much. And I knew that she used to work for Sky or something else. And as she was getting off the train, I said to her, oh, do you know anybody in, on radio or anything? And she went, oh, I do. I know Laura Whitmore. And I was like, oh, she's still, I know her producer. And I said, well, leave it with me. And literally by the end of the day, I was sending off a signed copy to somebody, and then I got on national BBC radio on the Laura Whitmore show. Now, I didn't even know who Laura Whitmore was at that point, because I don't watch TV a lot. Now, Laura Whitmore is a sort of the shining star of she does, Love Island and all the different things. And I didn't know that. I was just chatting to somebody about the thing that I do, and she was funny, and the people that she had on, they were really engaged in the book, and it was great. and so of course then it pushed the book back up to being bestseller, and which was wonderful. And so there's lots of different things, but they are all part of being a nice person and connecting with people, and also asking. That's been but when you're asking for the book rather than, do you want me to come on your radio show because I'm a coach, or I can come on and talk about my product, that's so much more of an easier sell.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that this year. I can talk to you about these things. Let me talk about those, because then I get to do what I get to do, and it's not about me, it's about that book. And that book just came to me. It was my experience, but that book then will do what it needs to do, and she's off changing the world, and everybody wants to talk to me about their underwear.
There are probably worse things.
Exactly. But it allows me to have an intimate conversation. You're not gonna, it cuts through a lot of chitty chat, which I'm not the best at that. I can do it, but it's not my thing. I'd rather have a real conversation. Like, tell me what's going on. Tell me what's really going on.
So it's opened up lots of both the conversations and avenues for you to grow your business.
Yeah, hugely. It's almost like it's just following the book now. So even like doing a podcast of thinking of calling the podcast of like life lessons from your Knicker Drawer, because it's a funny title, it's engaging, and then it's just like deciding what content I want behind it and what I want to do with it. Yeah, it's just and it's easy, it's fun. It's like, would you like my book? Yeah, what's it about? It's called Life Lessons from your Knicker Drawer. Oh, and you've only got to have like one sentence in, and you can watch people's expression. It sort of changes, and then they go off, and they're in their Knicker Drawer, and they come back, and it changes again of the horror of like the truth of the conversation that they're now having, and then they want to tell you more about their life, and they can't help it because they'll say, "Oh, I do this or something else," or "I noticed this," and you're like, "Okay, do you want a conversation about that?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think that you could have written the book earlier, or do you think that it's now for a reason?
Yeah, definitely. Because again, I can beat myself up about it and go, "Oh, you should have done this earlier. You had this, how many years ago? You could have written it then." But all the components that I needed to have to get this book where it is weren't available to me then. And I wasn't the girl that I was then. I was 45, I was mourning, after my mum died, there was, our whole family fell out and everything. And so it was hugely life-altering for me. So I really had to find my own inner strength. And so lots of other things were happening along that journey, as well as my falling in love with myself. And I've always been a strong, courageous person. Don't get me wrong, but when your world gets quite rocked at the roots, you do have to stop and go, right, okay, I need to work out my path again. Where's my truth in this? So yeah, it's no. And same as if anybody asked me of they've beaten themselves up about anything that they should have, could have, would have done in the past, of like how much it's like, well, how, what's the point? You're going to beat yourself up about something that hasn't happened. Didn't happen that way. So no, I don't think like that. I do think, I'm quite honest that it did take a long time. But do I think it's worth it? Yeah, I do. Because I know that it's not, that book's been in my mind, in and around it for so long, that the way that it came out, is the way that it needs to come out. Do I read it now and think, oh, there's bits in it that I'd really like to change that now. That's only my perfectionista that will come out and go, well, that's not right. But mostly it's no one's going to turn around and go, I think you overdid it on that paragraph.
Yeah.
That's only my little mind that will go, I don't think you need to repeat yourself so much. But maybe I did. And I clearly did, because that's what's in it.
Do you have something in mind that you're going to do next? Or are you finding your way through what you've done right now?
I think sort of next year is about consolidating. This year's been huge, like in terms of growth and different things. So the mastermind's out in January. That's a huge commitment, and that's going to have a retreat in it. So there's all different things that are going on that now that I'm focusing on for just to enjoy doing the do rather than grow. I am growing, and so it's all about audience growth. But I have all the things now.
Yeah.
I have all the I don't need any more programs or anything else that needs to be done. All of that is there. I'd like to do more speaking things, especially with the book. It's very easy, an easy speaking talk. So that's on the agenda for next year. I think that definitely needs to come out more, to do more talks. And I'm really enjoying, I'm doing more podcasts, more talks in people's groups, and to just do more and more of that. So I just refine my my talk. And then it's sort of a TED talk, those kinds of just small goals.
Just little things. You're looking forward to.
Yeah,
And so your mastermind, what's the name of your mastermind coming up in January?
Business of You.
Business of You. And if anybody's interested to sign up for that, they'll find the details on your website.
Yeah, everything's on the website.
And
just kerryhales.com. I'm everywhere. It's Kerry Hales.
Perfect. That makes it easy. And your book, Life Lessons from Your Knicker Drawer. Tell me where everybody can find that.
They can find it on my website. It's on the front page. So if you get lost and thinking, what was it called? Lessons where? So it's there. But if you wanted to go and just hunt me out on, if you just put in Kerry Hales on Amazon, there's 2 of my books there on there. So it's on there, or Waterstones in the UK. You can order the hardback on the Waterstones and then go pick it up from a Waterstone shop. Bona fide, everything. How exciting.
Very fancy.
I know. That is very fancy.
Oh my God. Like you needed a reason to go back into Waterstones.
I know. But I haven't done that yet. I must admit, I do think that sort of I need to order it and go in and go, can I pick up my book? Oh, that's me. And the cashier, it's going to be so like, to be the same as like sort of keeping your ego in check. Like my ego will never get out of check because I've got children, and this is the reason why, right? So, and like I've been on BBC Radio Ken, and I've done different things, and everything has been great. And then obviously it was on BBC Radio, like national BBC Radio, big thing, right? And so my children, I'm like, okay, you in the kitchen and everything else. And my oldest son, had his friend over, and I told him, so, Arthur, I'm going to be on BBC Radio. He's like, oh, great. I said, right, okay, so you guys watch out there. So, it was on and it was great. I mean, they're very, very different to local radio. You get sound checks and just really, really like, okay, yeah, you ready? And anyway, so I got off and I was like high as God. I was like, oh my God, I was just on the radio. I went outside and said to Sally, I said, oh, what do you think? He went, you were great, Mum, you were great. And I went, oh, where's Frankie? He went, oh, he went to Tesco's. And I was like, he what? He went, well, yeah, he went to Tesco's. He come back and I went, you went to Tesco's? And he went, well, you're always on the radio. What? I was like,
oh, wow.
I was on national radio. He said, well, I heard a bit. He said, but like, I'm just his mum.
Yeah.
But it was really weird. I mean, in that kind of like sort of moment in time of like seeing celebrities and actually their kids of how they sing. And like, not that my life's anything like that, but it just of like keeping it real, people, just keeping it real. My son needed to go and get his meal deal with his mate, because they were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and that was more important than listening to his mum on national radio. And you kind of go, because that's the way he sees it.
Feet back on the ground.
Yeah. No, I don't think I'll ever get off the ground, Janice. You used to say, look at, no, okay. The dog thing you used to say, yes, there's dogs just been sick on the floor. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Keeping it real, people. Just keeping it real.
It's not all glamour.
No. Yes, and it's such a glamorous life. Yeah, and I jump in the sea and douche.
Well, thank you so much, Kerry, for joining me today. I really, really appreciate your time. Once again, I always love talking to you.
Oh, it's always a joy. You always ask great questions. It's so, I mean, I can talk, as you well know.
I do know, but the thing about you talking is you're interested and you're passionate and you are consistent, not only in your words, but matching your words to your actions. And I love witnessing that.
Thank you.
No,
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I know that was quite the chat, eh? But listen, before you go, I'm going to be running a beta version of a pitching workshop. Now, I call it a workshop because you're going to learn and do tasks so that at the end, you'll have successfully submitted actual pitches to get your PR working for you in 2022. So if you're interested in getting into some podcasts next year to help you raise your profile, attract a new audience, you should get on my email list. Maybe follow my Facebook page or even join my private group. Search Connections, Coffee and Confidence and you'll find me on Facebook, or go to janisfogarty.com to get on my email list. And now, my friend, have a freaking-tastic rest of your day. Thanks so much for listening this week. I invite you to sign up for my email list or join me in the Connections, Coffee and Confidence community on Facebook. Those are the people who get first dibs on any classes or products I create, and they benefit from the extras I can't get into in a podcast format. I also lovingly request that if you've enjoyed this podcast, you leave a review on Apple. When I see a new review, I get so excited I almost spill my cappuccino froth. Almost. And if you're a woman entrepreneur who's ready to get serious about using the power of communications to grow your business, send me an email at janisfogarty.com. All my details are in the show notes. Thank you again for listening today, and I'll chat with you again next week.